Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 1 in our Business Insight series, Driving Export-Led Growth. We will be starting promptly at 9, so I invite you to get your last cup of coffee and snack before we start. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Exim Bank introduces the X Loan. Exporters can access the Exim Bank's Forex facility to purchase U.S. funds for raw material and international shipping costs. Or get an X Loan to purchase international equipment with a TT loan repayable in TT dollars. Export incentive interest rates available. Increase your company's productivity and be more competitive in the global market. Exim Bank, powering exports. Exim Bank introduces the X Loan. Exporters can access the Exim Bank's Forex facility to purchase U.S. funds for raw material and international shipping costs, or get an X Loan to purchase international equipment with a TT loan repayable in TT dollars. Export incentive interest rates available. Increase your company's productivity and be more competitive in the global market. Exim Bank. Power.
Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 in our Business Insight series, Driving Export-Led Growth, How to Get It Done. This event is sponsored by the Exim Bank of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. So just to take you through the agenda today, we will begin with the rules of engagement, which I will go through with you in a while. Then we will have opening remarks from Ms. Kiran Maharaj, Senior Vice President of the TNT Chamber. Then we'll go to a presentation from Mr. Navin Dukaran, Chief Executive Officer of the Exim Bank of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. And then we will enter the exciting part of today's session, which is the Exporters Panel. We have Mr. John Haddad of the Hadco Group, Mr. Sean Rampasad of Rams Logistics, Mr. Camille Khan of Camry Glass, and of course the panel will also be joined by Mr. Navin Dukaran. The session will be moderated by Mr. Gabriel Faria. And we will, after the panel discussion, we will go into Q&A where you can feel free to ask as many questions as you like. And to do so, we ask that you put your questions in the Q&A using the Q&A feature at the bottom here that's circled in green. Please don't place any questions in the chat. The moderator will not be checking the chat for questions. So if something is placed there, it will be missed. So please, again, where you see at the bottom of your screen in the taskbar, the Q&A feature, please enter all your questions for the panel discussion using that feature, right? The session is being recorded and will be placed on our Business Insights On Demand library on the Chamber's website. And a link will also be sent to participants once it is up so you can easily access it and view and share with your colleagues and so on. With that, I now hand you over to Ms. Kiran Maharaj, who will open today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna, Manager of our Trade and Business Development Unit here at the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber. Mr. Navin Dukaran, Chief Executive Officer of Exim Bank of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. Mr. John Haddad, Co-Chief Executive Officer of the Hadco Group. Mr. Camille Khan, Managing Director of Camry Glass, Mr. Sean Rampasad, Chief Executive Officer of Rams Logistics, Mr. Gabriel Faria, Chief Executive Officer of the TNT Chamber, members and colleagues of the business community, members and friends of the media. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the TNT Chamber, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Business Insight session, Driving Export Growth, How to Get It Done. We are delighted to collaborate with one of our signature sponsors, Exim Bank, to host this webinar on this very timely topic. Just a few weeks ago, the national budget was read. Like most of you, the TNT Chamber listened attentively to the measures announced, but of particular interest was the forecast for energy commodity prices, which remains a key source of revenue for Trinidad and Tobago. The expected price uptick provides some optimism, but given the events of the last 18 months, we should guard against being too reliant on this source as a fillip for achieving economic growth. If anything, it will only be able to give us temporary respite as the global energy transition is underway. The reality is that we need to nurture and invest in developing our other productive sectors, and the importance of driving export growth cannot be underestimated. For this reason, we view today's event as important on many levels. Exports will play a vital role in sustaining economic activity during this difficult period. And without this contribution, we would undoubtedly see an even greater economic contraction and a decline in the standard of living. This is where our exporters can be an important part of the story in the long run as well as the short to medium term. On a level important to you and your companies, there are many reasons to export. We know a lot of them. Increasing and diversifying sales, expanding markets, thereby spreading risk, ensuring adaptability, extending product life cycles through entering into new additional markets which may be less developed. And these are just some examples. The objective of today's session is to share with you, our attendees, insights into how to approach your export initiative, access support services, and techniques for building and leveraging networks to develop your export strategy. Our panelists are business persons who continue to defy the odds to establish their export footprint and build international brands. They exemplify that it is your vision that defines your success and not necessarily the current operating landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, I certainly look forward to the insights that they will share and the subsequent discussion. I encourage you to please take this opportunity to tap into the knowledge of our guests and ask as many questions as possible. Let me introduce to you someone who has intrinsic knowledge of export and growth strategies. But first, a little bit about him. Mr. Navin Dookeran's last role was at the UWI Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business as the Program Director of the Executive MBA. Navin obtained his MBA in Finance from the McGill University in Montreal, Quebec, and received bachelor's degrees in Economics and Life Sciences from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. His early career began at Development Finance Limited in Port of Spain. Later, he moved to RBC Financial Group in Toronto, Canada, where he held the portfolio of Commercial Relationship Manager. His experience in finance continued at Manulife Bank and Trust in Canada as Director in Lending Services, and then as the AVP Head of Credit Risk Management, where he continued to deepen his experience in banking strategy, operations, service delivery, and credit risk management. Mr. Dookeran's view is that the Exim Bank, the only official export credit agency in the country, has a unique role to play in the financing and development of export diversification of the economy through resource allocation and risk-sharing strategies. It is now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Navin Dookeran, CEO of Exim Bank Trinidad and Tobago Limited, to deliver his opening presentation titled, "The Role Exim Bank Plays in Driving Exports, New Initiatives to Assist Exporters." Good morning, Navin.
Well, thank you very much, Kiran. You know, your lead up and the framework that you set for all of us, I think guides us well for the rest of this discussion. And I think this is the key takeaways that we really want to bring some insights to the listening audience for us to be able to all together drive exports for Trinidad and Tobago. With that, let me share my screen here, and I'm first going to start to talk about a little bit about the national foreign exchange situation, as we know that has already been in place. Let me just get it maximized. Okay, great. So this is some graphs regarding the national foreign exchange situation. This is data from the Central Bank Data Center. And I'll first start with the graph below. This is from January 2018 up to present, so almost 4 years, three and three quarters. And what you will see on this graph is, first of all, the bottom orange line is the amount of funds on a monthly basis the central bank injects into the system. And that has remained constant at about 100 million per month, US dollars per month into the system. The blue line is the amount that the banks purchase from the public. A big portion of that is the energy companies. And so therefore, when you total those two things up, you get the gray line, which is the total. What you could see on the bottom graph, since 2018, and we could go further back, but since 2018 to now, there has been the trend line there showing that there's been a drop in the total amount in the system from 500 million to 400 million. Now, before 2018 and back, it was even higher. So you know that is why we've had this tightness for so long. Let's go now to the top graph, which is a little bit more nearer term, since the start of 2020. I'll go straight to let you know, look at that trend line. The trend line is actually flat, right? So while we've had the tightness over, let's say, the last 5 or 6 years and so on, since 2020, there's not been a material increased tightness into the banking system. One other point I want to point out on this graph is that usually the energy companies will sell into the banking system on a quarterly basis, March, June, September, and so on, and December. So if you want to, talk to your bankers and try to access US dollars, maybe, keep that in mind. The month after, April month, October month, these kind of months might be good times where there's a little bit more in the system. The last thing I want to point out on this national system is that I'll just move on to actually one last thing, which is if you watch from the November month, November 2020, actually what you see that the September was the lowest point, and there's actually been a slight uptick in foreign exchange in the system, and that is primarily because of the energy prices and so on that is happening. So I would say it is a tight market, but at least for the last little bit of time, it has not been getting significantly worse. And then the Exim Bank has a part to play. So I could talk for a long time and tell you all the different things we do, but let me try to show you a video that will kind of encompass everything, and then I'll go through some of the points in that video in my recap.
The Exim Bank supports key sectors of the Trinidad and Tobago economy. From the start of the pandemic, Exim Bank has prioritized Forex for essential items. These include basic food, cleaning and hygiene products, agri and non-food items, PPE, and medicine. This prevented shortages of necessary items on the shelves. The Exim Bank team continues to work diligently to provide this critical national service. On the exporting front, $200 million have been allocated to over 150 manufacturers for the purchase of raw materials, equipment, and shipping costs. 86% of companies accessing Forex are small and medium-sized businesses. Even aspiring exporters with an export plan can access US dollars. A global economic recovery is underway, and Exim Bank clients are increasing exports. Increase your company's productivity and be more competitive in the global market. Exim Bank, powering exports.
Okay, but so I thought that will encompass a lot of the things that we are doing here at the Exim Bank, and I wanted to let you see that. I'm just going to go into a few points along that video to again go into some more detail. And on the essentials, so what we want to do, we already made a lot of this information public in a Parliamentary Enterprises Accounts Committee meeting. This is an update here for this audience in terms of how that Forex for Essentials program has worked out and where some of the funds went. What this program has allowed us to do at the Exim Bank is it has actually helped us build relationships with many of the importers in the country for these various items. And now what we are doing, we are working with these importers, not many of them yet, but a few, to actually convert importers to exporters, right? These importers have very long-standing supplier relationships, good buying power. So, is that any reason that they only have to sell to Trinidad? They could start selling abroad, earning foreign currency as well. That will help the national foreign exchange earnings. Moving on to the manufacturing Forex facility. So, I just wanted to point out that, a significant amount, or most of the companies in Trinidad are small and medium size, and a lot of them have already accessed the manufacturing Forex facility. But I wanted want people to realize that the Exim Bank is open to small business. And so this is why I want to point out that last line or second to last line there, aspiring exporters with an export plan can access US dollars. You don't even have to be exporting yet. Once you have a plan, we will provide Forex for you for up to a year. After the year, we need to see that you have made an export sale and that you've bought US dollars back into the country, right? But you can actually access the facility with just plans to export. And how do we help you with those plans? Well, on our website, we've created an export plan template. It's an Excel-based template, very, very concise. You can go download that. and you've just filled that out, it helps you think through what you need to do to export, right? And this is how we're trying to get, small businesses to start to move towards that exporting movement. Now, the program has been going well, and I must admit, we are very, very pleased to see the increase in exports over this course of the year, even during the time when we're in lockdown. But there's a global economic recovery happening, and the exports are increasing. And so, I want to commend all the panelists and other companies here that are really doing all the hard work to make this happen. Now, just to put this into perspective, if you look at around 200 million, I believe the total non-energy manufacturing exports for the country are around about close to 800 million per month. And the reason why we are only 25% is that there are some very large companies that just are net Forex earners and don't need the Exim Bank's support. And hopefully our plan with this program is we graduate you to that point. And that way, your company is not at the mercy of national foreign exchange shortages, because your company is actually earning enough foreign exchange for your needs. Finally, I want to just point out and end on a very key, what I would call requirement for us to export and penetrate global markets, is we have to be competitive. That's just flat out the competitiveness, and our productivity have to be at certain levels. It's a little bit tricky for us because some of our company sizes don't have the economies of scale like some in Latin America and so on. But what I know about Trinidadian products and services is there's good quality. And if we can produce that type of quality in a competitive manner, we have good opportunities. And this is where companies that invest in technology and new equipment at this time will help improve their competitiveness. And that's where our X-Loan product comes in, right? You don't have to use your US dollars and have to pay back a US dollar loan to buy equipment. You could get the US, but you just have to pay back in TT and a TT dollar loan. So these are some of the ways that I'm hoping that companies can access the programs and offerings of the Exim Bank. And I must admit, I am very pleased to see that companies are actually taking the steps. And we'll hear more today about some of the other initiatives from companies that are doing extremely well, and I would say moving the national export needle. So that's it for me, and I look forward to the rest of the session.
Thank you, Navin, and thank you for contextualizing the role of Exim Bank and the kind of support you give to the local business community. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to commence this morning's panel discussion. Our panelists include Mr. John Haddad, Mr. Camille Khan, Mr. Sean Rampersad, and of course, Mr. Navin Dukaran. I just wanted to remind everyone to please remember to ask your questions via the Q&A button, not the chat button, but the Q&A button. It is at the base of your Zoom screen. These questions will be passed along to the moderator and panel. Now, let me give you a brief background of each of our panelists. Mr. John Haddad, he graduated from the Queen's University, Ontario in 1985 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Physics. His career began at Schlumberger International in 1985 in the position of wire logging engineer, which he held for 5 years. He gained added hands-on experience in the manufacturing sector as he embarked on the leadership role at a local manufacturer during the period 1990 to 92. John co-founded Hadco Limited in 1992 and has served as Group Co-Chief Executive Officer since then. He has been a member of the Association of Professional Engineers in Trinidad and Tobago since 1991. On March 12, 2014, John was appointed Honorary Consul of the Republic of Malta. He completed the Owner-President Management Program from Harvard Business School in 2016 and was appointed to the Board of Directors of Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago on October 30th, 2020. On June 10th, 2021, he was appointed by the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Port of Spain as chairperson of the Institutional Advancement Committee. A little bit now about Mr. Camille Khan, founder of Camry Investments Limited, which is a family-owned and managed company. In 2000, Mr. Khan, together with his wife, Rizwana Khan, established the first tempered glass manufacturing company in the Caribbean, with its tempering furnace located in the central part of Trinidad's largest industrial park. Mr. Khan received the 2018 TTMA Award for Most Successful Market Entrant. His passion for Camry investments is the drive for continued growth and development of his company and prides itself in consistently producing high-quality glass products for private and commercial markets. Mr. Sean Rampersad, in 3 words, he's best described as passionate, visionary, and innovative. As CEO of Ramps Logistics, Sean intends to create companies where the best, brightest, and most talented minds in the world can find a home and belong to an organization they can be proud of. Under his leadership, the company has established a clear focus on research and development, process efficiency, and cross-department collaboration. Sean focuses on building the leaders of tomorrow by motivating and connecting with millennials. He is determined to challenge the youth to fulfill their truest potential. Apart from community development, Sean is a huge advocate for the advancement of the regional economy. He believes in building strong and profitable businesses to fortify the Caribbean's position in global markets. Sean believes in utilizing resources and incorporating technology to stay ahead of current trends. Pushing boundaries and challenging the norm is the Sean Rampersad way. I now hand over to our CEO of the TNT Chamber, Mr. Gabriel Faria, and moderator of our panel discussion. Gabriel?
Thank you very much, Kiran. John, Sean, do you want to turn on your cameras? Let's just introduce you all.
Hey, good morning,
Okay.
everybody.
Good morning, good morning. So I have been asked to give a short sort of oversight on the importance of exports. And, you know, we have had some meetings before, and I wanted to let the attendees know that I think it was almost 4 years ago, we brought together a very successful importer of ice cream and a very successful importer of batteries on the panel discussion. And they were talking about changing their business model. I don't think in those days we had the term pivot as much as we use it now, but they were pivoting their businesses. And today those businesses are exporting. So our company, and you know, something that Navin said is so critical, how do we redefine and change our businesses? The Hadco Group was primarily importing, but they have now changed, they have pivoted their business and they're making ice cream in Trinidad, not just for Trinidad, but for export. A company like Sean, like Ramps Logistics, what Sean has done, he's taken local technical expertise and taking it global. I don't know if today we recognize that the Trinidad you all grew up in, I'm going to use the term you all because I grew up in another Trinidad. The Trinidad you all grew up in has changed, and we have to change. When I was a young man and I was going to school, I had to take something called an ECO down to Central Bank. And I would meet, I never forget, it was the head of the ECO division, Mr. Smith. And I would say, I need $20,000 to go to school. And he would say, well, I can't give you 20, I'll give you 15. Or I would be getting a container of goods coming in after I came back from school. And I would be getting a container of goods. I used to work at a small company called Meckelfab. And I say, I have a container of 20,000 US I need to pay for. And he said, well, I can't give you 20, I can only give you 15. And I said, but I can't bring in 3/4 of a container. So I want you to know that where we are today, created a dynamic, aggressive, hungry Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, as hungry as we are today. And I don't know if I can explain that any better. We are seeing businesses today that are taking steps to change their predictable outcome. It shows when you look at a company like Ramsey, look at a company like Camry Glass and John, these are 3 exemplars, but there are hundreds of them that are doing it every day. And this is a good opportunity. One thing that came up in our discussions is that Exim Bank, under the current leadership, the current CEO, its leadership team on the board, has really focused on dealing with our pain points, the business community's pain points. And it's something that we always talk about, the ease of doing business. Well, Exim Bank has set a standard for the ease of doing business. They've delivered on a massive improvement, and it's truly like dealing with a best-in-class private sector organization, which is focused on addressing our pain points. We're in a new operating environment. I think Navin talked about energy used to account for 80% of our exports. We have to stop sitting and complaining about not having foreign exchange. The people sitting on this panel and hundreds of others have stopped complaining. They're saying, I am going to take this into my own hands. There is a predictable outcome, and I'm going to change it. So I want to recognize that. I've looked at the people who are on the panel. We have service companies, we have exporters. We're going to have a very rich discussion. I want to first hand over now to Camille Khan, and I'm going to give him 5 minutes to talk a little bit about his business and give us some of his thoughts, and then we'll move on. Camille, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Faria and Navin and all the members of the host and panelists for this program. It's an honor to be here. Today, Camry Glass stands as a difference in company. We spoke a lot about change, and we started by doing that a little bit at a time. We have prepared a quick video to show some of the final products that we manufacture, and now most importantly, export. So just give me 1 second. Let me share this video with you, and we can move forward. That we do. So Camry started with the way of operating business as normal small businesses. You buy and you sell. But we couldn't reach far with that. We had to start to become manufacturing, because in buying and selling from 2016, there was a lot of problem for Forex creeping up slowly but surely. So we decided to start the whole manufacturing process with tempered glass. Tempered glass forges ahead. Every modern country is doing it with glass. Yes, we could import it, but you know what? Trinidad had a lot of benefit in manufacturing and making a big impact in Trinidad as a country. We decided to open the first tempered glass in the Caribbean. From there, we started to improve other systems that were being used and built in Trinidad by applying tempered glass. We moved on to impact glass for hurricane. So you can get hurricane products with us. Now, we started with doing this and importing, and then started to manufacture. Foreign exchange became more and more difficult as we started earlier. We then went on to saying, hey, this is a product that we can export. Export market dictated the future of our company. And in so doing, we got first world technology. both Chinese and the Americans came in and certified us to produce tempered glass. From there, we moved on to UPVC windows, which is hurricane resistant and all of the benefits for the Caribbean market. So we turned our company from being a Trinidad and Tobago supplier to one that was supplying the Caribbean, because the Trinidad and Tobago market then became too small. We started by exporting to one country, two. Right now, we export to 4 different countries and negotiating with others along the way. And we are also developing brand awareness in different markets by opening showrooms to continue complementing the line of products that we manufacture. Yeah.
Okay, Camille, thank you very, very much for that introduction. You know, it's interesting when you look and you hear about tempered glass, and it's a very specialized industry, and you realize years ago, all of this tempered glass had to come in from North America. But today, it's produced here and it's available across the region. So again, congratulations, Camille. Let me give John an opportunity. John, you're muted. Let me give you an opportunity to provide our background on your business and give us some thoughts.
Thank you, Gabriel, again, and thanks to the Chamber for always being relevant, always doing the things that we feel we need to hear and do at certain appropriate times, and I have to say the Chamber has been highly active. And thank you for having me give our little story, as well as to put myself out there in terms of being questioned on a number of the things that we are doing. So let me start off by saying that 2015, Hardco was just about Hardco Group was about 23 years old. We looked at ourselves back then and we asked ourselves, like, who are we? What are we doing? And we were basically playing in an area of import distribution, retail, where we weren't even earning probably 1% of our foreign exchange needs. We didn't own any brands, and all the light that comes with distribution, import distribution, retail business. However, we looked at our core competencies. What did we build? Who are we? And we built an amazing distribution network, something, you know, if you look at the things in our business that are very hard to replicate, culture is one, distribution is two. So when we looked at it, we figured, look, we have this amazing distribution network. We built out a highly integrated system, and we were well educated by a lot of the companies we dealt with, from the General Mills of the day to Conagra, General Electric, Philips. All of these people that we distributed and worked with, they've taught us, and taught us very well. Who are we, and what happened along the way? We decided to change in the last 6 years, and Mariana, you can change to the next slide. Today, if you look at who we are and what we are as a company, we own some of our brands. Our sales are up, profits are up 6 years later. Our Forex needs have not climbed. If anything, they've gone down a bit. We are earning today, heading on to 20% of our foreign exchange needs. And we have a more international look to our business. We have offices in a few different countries. We have businesses in a few different countries. We are operating a business out in the United States. And we feel today, this is a sexier look to our business, where we want to be, or where we want to springboard from as we move forward in the next few years. So, what did we do? How did we get there? And we first realized that we had to put a strong, sound financial structure in place. So we went out to all of the banks, we restructured our borrowings, and we created cash flow immediately, as well as along the way in terms of how we structured our debt repayment. We looked at the lines that we had, and we leveraged those lines and the strengths that we had within the group. And came out of that was the operations in Miami, where we started selling some of those products to Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, in the Caribbean, and a few other countries. So we started to tinker with sales from Miami, and it allowed us to go into the acquisition of a business in Barbados in the electrical assembly, manufacturing, LED lighting and so. The second thing we did was acquire and grow. And a good example of that is Land Ice and Fish. There's a picture there of some tuna processing, and that business actually is the largest export earner in the group right now. And that business was highly critical for us to understand the export business and all of the certifications required to get into the US market. The business had already been exporting to the US market. So by acquiring, we grew and scaled up that business. Start from scratch, we started Creamery from scratch as an ice cream manufacturing business. And with that allowed us to own our own brands and learn to actually position and market brands in other countries. And then we went on into greenfield initiatives that we're looking at right now. Recycling, Rihanna, you could put up the other slide. And culture, we're going into pan manufacturing, which is our next slide, Rihanna. And we're looking very closely at ecotourism right now and a number of projects in that area. So there's been, you know, if you look at the final slide, Rihanna, you could show the final slide there. Our exports actually are touching a number of countries 6 years later. None of this looked like that 6 years ago. And there was a lot of collaboration. We collaborated a lot with people like organizations like Kariri, Invest TT, our distributors in other countries, our teams internally, our hardcore employees in the teams, as well as a number of middle people. When you're involved in waste and garbage, you have to work through middle people to get your product into other countries. And finally, I have to put a little plug in here. Exim has been huge for us. Navin, under Navin's leadership and the rest of the team there, they actually listened to our needs. They listened to some pitches that we made with them as to how to look to the group. We declared our interest, we declared our US dollar earnings. We are domiciled here in Trinidad. So a lot of things we've worked together with Exim to build that relationship and to become relevant and make them relevant to us. And they've been highly critical in terms of providing US dollars for our growth, as well as other tools that we work with them on. So all kudos to them. And that's my little spiel here. Gabriel, thank you very much.
You know, John, I must tell you, when we think of your business, you know, we know your electrical distribution business as a base, and we know, of course, the hardcore range. But you know, what's interesting, and it comes back to what Navin is saying, and the support Exim Bank is giving, is it's creating the impetus for so many businesses to rethink their footprint in Trinidad, or rethink their footprint not just in Trinidad. You know, we have to learn we're not living on a rock in the Caribbean. And companies like yours, companies like Camry and Sean, and as I'm seeing so many people in the group here, have to recognize that the world is our market and we have the power to do it. You look at companies like Angostura, they've been doing it for 100 years, but they're in 180 different markets. So we have the potential. And I want to recognize the work that so many of us are doing. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really create a new Trinidad and Tobago. Let me now hand over to Sean. Because Sean, Navin.
Say one thing, and one of the things that what we do when we provide the foreign exchange is we look at the return. And I have to say the hardcore group, the foreign exchange that is allocated to them, they are multiplying that and increasing foreign exchange earnings even greater. So I have to commend them. They are moving the national needle in exports and a number of these other companies. But that return on investment is what one of the measures.
Excellent, excellent. So now we're going to take the young whippersnapper in the group, and Sean is going to give us that fire and passion. Sean, over to you. I don't need to speak for Rams. Rams is a global brand. Go, Sean.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And I really want to thank you guys for having me here. And I want to thank the Exim Bank for sponsoring today's session. I think it's so important. And all of us agree that the future really is in exports. We really don't have access to the US dollars like we used to. Rihanna, are you going to... So guys, today what I really want to do was just kind of give you an overview of our journey at Rams. And my hope is that you can relate to your business and understand and ask me today, what I can do to help you, because I could tell you that the amount of mistakes we made as we grew the business was quite incredible. The business started in 1985. My dad started the business. I had a discussion with my dad last month, and I was telling him, how there's a lot of pessimism in the society, and people are, they're not so optimistic about the future. And he said, Sean, if you think things are bad now, Gabriel might know a little bit better. He said in 1985, it was nothing. What we have today is nothing compared to what they went through in 1985. And that's when he started the business in 1985. In 2011, we were about 25 people. Last week, I got a count from our HR head, and we are more than 700 people today. And we are across 6 countries. So if you think about that growth from 2011, in 20 years, we've gone from 25 people to 700 people. And I actually want to share our financial numbers with you, but my finance chief told me I can't do that either. But just to give you an idea of how the company is growing and where we are focused on. And out of that 700 staff, about 250 sit at head office here in Trinidad, and the rest of them are distributed across the world. Our last office that we opened is in Colombia. And in 2022, we expect to open 2 more offices, one in Peru and one in Chile. Let's go to the next slide, Rihanna. What has been our approach to export? Our approach to export has been to build out centers of excellence here in Trinidad. And I can tell you, going from 25 people in 2011 to 700 people today, it's been an interesting challenge, full of ups and full of downs. But one of the things that we've realized is that we need to have world-class infrastructure to support the scaling up of a business. So in Trinidad, our entire business has been built on research and development. Today, we are developing digital tools to support our businesses across the world. All of the support services for all of these countries, whether it's AP, contract management, communications and marketing, everything that we need to execute a business in those countries, except for the actual people who literally run around in those countries, is actually managed out of head office here in Trinidad. Gabriel spoke about, the exchange controls back in the days when he was going to school. I have to say to you all, and things are changing. And I have to be honest with you when I say that, I know coronavirus has been very difficult for a lot of people, and it's still difficult for a lot of people. But COVID has probably been one of the best things that has ever happened to Rams. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. COVID has forced us, although I would say to you, we've been focused on digital development for maybe about 3 to 4 years now. What we did in 1 year in COVID, it would have probably taken us 10 years to do if we didn't have COVID. And what really COVID forced us to do, and I'll give you an example of something. I used to be on a plane 2 weeks out of every month, pre-COVID. And I would always say, when I go to a country, I would manage there. Now, everything is flows back into head office. I manage my Guyana team or my Colombia team or my Mexico team, just as if I were managing my Trinidad team. And this digital infrastructure development is prime for countries like Trinidad and Tobago, where we don't have a significant buying population in country, but we can now use these digital tools to build out our distribution network in these countries. And John spoke about that distribution network. One of the greatest tools any business has is their distribution channels. And at Rams, because we are a service business and we don't necessarily have physical products going into our distribution channel, what we talk about is our digital distribution channel. How are we building a digital distribution channel to connect our electronic and our digital products and services to our customers? And I'll give you an example. Today we are moving containers from, let's say, Miami to Cartagena, Colombia. And that business never touches Trinidad. But in Trinidad, there's a center of excellence right here in Trinidad that is dealing with a vendor in Miami, dealing with a carrier in Miami, a customer in Colombia, digitally invoicing that customer, digitally receiving payments, and sorting out that entire transaction. And Trinidad might make a few dollars out of that, but you keep repeating that over and over and over in a market like Colombia, which is more than 30 million people, and you start beginning to understand how you could scale your business as well. So we are really, really focused on the digital tools that will drive our business forward. Next slide, Rihanna. We are really, really proud of this project. This is our Guyana 3PL facility. It's a 70,000 square foot of space in Guyana. And I have to say how grateful I am to Navin and the Exim Bank for working together with us to get this facility up and running in Guyana. And our vision for this facility is that many Trinidadian manufacturers and companies in Trinidad will be able to use this facility in Guyana, put their product into this facility, and then access the Guyanese market. But that's only half of it. What will happen in the next 2 months or the next few months in Guyana is that you will see Guyana starting to become the gateway to North Brazil. And you will see products moving through Guyana to access millions of Brazilian customers in Bonfim, Boa Vista, and that whole northern Brazilian part of the Amazonia. And I really hope that Trinidadian companies start thinking about that market. And what our plan is to ensure that we make your logistics as seamless and as smooth as possible, so that you could put product into that warehouse and access your customers and deliver to your customers in a very, very short space of time. So I'm really excited about the future of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm very, very excited about it because I feel that digital has allowed us to now operate in a much more level playing field as some of the larger markets. So Gabe, back to you.
Wow. Guys, you know, I'm listening to you all, and there's a terminology. You know, we have amazing businesses in Trinidad, but you know what makes us strong? And I'm looking at people who are on this session. What makes us strong is today, one of our winners, one of the awardees for our Hall of Fame is Angela Leloy, is on this webinar listening to this session, right? She's on this webinar here with Maria Changtang and an economist, Mary King, are listening to us talking about this. And I'm listening to you all, and I'm seeing a new wave of innovation. But you know what makes us strong? What each of you all have said is what makes us strong is not what we know, but what we know we don't know. And how we reach out and engage and use our networks to make ourselves stronger. Today, there's a predictable outcome. The predictable outcome for every company in Trinidad is, I don't have enough foreign exchange. I was reading it today in one of the business papers. We're killing the industry because we don't have enough foreign exchange. But what you all have done is you all have moved away from being a role taker, to a role maker. Each of you all have done it. And I'm looking at the list here because I have the list of people who are online looking at us. And we all have the power to do that. And I want to commend each of you all. I would like to just get into some questions with some of you all. And John, if you don't mind, let me start with you. When you look at your business, it's interesting because you have a Trinidad-based business, but you, like Sean, are driving exports across multiple business groups. So, for example, you have the LED business in Barbados that's exporting. You have fish. How do you have a central export unit? Do you have dedicated export teams? Because they're different products, different customers. How do you do that?
Gabriel, it's firstly, the structure of our business and our model is very specific to, and if you notice, a lot of the areas we play in food and beverage, even in manufacturing and everything. We play in food and beverage, we play in electrical and lighting, alcohol, which doesn't factor here in terms of manufacturing, and then logistics and services and recycling, right? So we have a central office, and the central office is a lot of shared resources of ICT, marketing, finance, accounting, etc. And we leave all of the businesses to concentrate on their operational stuff. Their centers of excellence. I love how Sean refers to that. So they don't have to get sidetracked by paying bills. We have a central payables department and receivables that does an excellent job. So we can all concentrate on what we do in terms of sales at the points of contact. Now, in terms of the export, because of the way each of the businesses are structured and the types of businesses they involve in, Land, Ice and Fish is exporting exclusively to the US, and all of their team is built around doing that. So nobody else in the group interferes with that, because there's a lot of tacit knowledge that goes into that bit of export to the US market, because HACCP certification, so many other things that you have to get right. As a matter of fact, you can't get it wrong. That's the correct way to say it. And then in the case of Creamery, Ice Cream has an excellent team, and that excellent team understands ice cream distribution, because Hardcore has done it for so many years. And they are now building out and mimicking a lot of what we've learned in other countries, helping some of our customers do that effectively there. And the list goes on. So each of them, there's no central export to answer you. Each one has to get it. Recycling. We have to work through brokers to get into India and South Korea in terms of selling some of our garbage. And that alone is a whole different knowledge base.
Right. So your back-end operations are centralized, but your key operating divisions run it. So we have that option, and then we have Camille, who's basically was in the window manufacturing business in Trinidad and has now changed that model and made what I think is a innovative investment in tempered glass. What drove that? How did you decide? In other words, why not something else? Why tempered glass? And what do you see as a potential? What do you see as a universe? How do you see you growing your business, Camille?
That's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, glass is the future. A lot of new buildings, new countries being developed, they work with construction material, and that's glass. And what is the sense we in Trinidad just import and resell? We need to start to put Trinidad on the map by manufacturing something. Now, most of the other glass companies in Trinidad use the old system, but we use this tempering system in Trinidad with a lot of technology. That was the biggest investment. Having this thing weigh, would it work? Would it not work? There is a demand for it, but as we all know, Trinidad is now small. Sean had said as well that the rest of the Caribbean islands and global thinking is what we have to move forward. And we went into tempered glass, and all the other products fall into place, meaning you can now use this glass into windows, you can now use this glass into handrail systems, building facades, and now Camry is moving into using this tempered glass to make solar panels. So it's the core product we need for a lot of our expansion moves in the near future.
Wow, so solar panels are on the horizon as another, because of course this whole COP24 and climate change and so on. So we will soon be able to get solar panels locally that you can use, that you can produce here, and not just for local, but for export.
Correct. It's the new energy. It's there. It's for us to utilize in homes, businesses. Solar farms are building all over the world. And we have decided that as a team, we need to know how we're going to make foreign exchange grow in our team of companies and for Trinidad, because it's a nightmare that we're trying to fix, but as a team we could help.
Gabriel, if I can ask Camille just to expand on that, where I saw the picture recently, Camille, where you had the glass on the trucks on the way to the, I don't know if it was the port or where, but there was an export order going out.
Right.
But how did you make that shift? Like, how did you make that first export sale?
We did this by collaborating with TTMA and TIC. We took part in that, and that is what gave us the opening introduction to these companies. And the biggest hit for us, besides exporting to Barbados and Grenada and Guyana and so forth, Jamaica was that target. And when we met with that contractor in Jamaica, he didn't even show up for the meeting. I took a taxi in a risky place like Jamaica and went and met the man. Then lo and behold, he was one of the main suppliers to hotels such as Sandals. Currently, this is our 4th order from the Sandals Beach Resorts. And now they're no longer ordering crates and half a container. Right before we reopened, we were able to pack a 40-foot container, and as of Now we have materials to load a 20-foot container in a week and a half.
Great, amazing. Now, you know, Sean, for those who don't know, last year, Rams Logistics won the award for the internationally known TAT owned company. And I think it's a very fitting recognition for a Trinidad business that has footprints across countries from Colombia, Guyana, North America. But Sean, what's the impetus? Why did you all take these risks? Because these are bold moves for a company. And as I said, I'm seeing a lot of service providers here, and they need to rethink their business. What was the impetus? What drove this?
So I think, Gabe, that we always knew that we want to grow the business. I mean, I passionately believe that the strength of a country is the strength of the brands in that country, right? You look at the US, you look at Google, you look at Apple and so on. And I think that we, like what John and they are doing with Creamery and so on, we have to build our own brands, right? We can't just be distributors. And I mean, that used to happen in the plantation economy, but we have to build our brands. But our market is small, right? We have 1.3 million. So you could be the most well-known brand in Trinidad, but you're not necessarily a well-known brand in the grander scheme of things. So one of the big things that we want to do was to build Rams. But what I want to add is that I've always been confused a little bit. Like I think a lot of people in Trinidad, they look at our natural resources and they only think about the stuff that's below the ground. But they don't realize that the vast majority of our resources is the stuff that's above the ground, the people, right? And if you look at our focus into LATAM, I'll tell you something. We've been working closely with the Living Water community and the United Nations Refugee Center for Refugee Agency in Trinidad. Because I can tell you now, when we first opened our office in Miami, we were like a small tenant working with somebody there in Miami. And then we grew and then we became bigger and we bought out that business. And then they couldn't keep up with us, right? So at some point we said, listen, these guys are going to hold back our growth if we don't do something about it. And then what we started to do is look for Trinidadians and how do we put those Trinidadians to work in quote unquote virtual positions. And this was around 2015, right? So it wasn't Microsoft Teams. It was literally a phone and that phone number thing where you could dial a US number, but it rang in Trinidad. That was our first way of exporting Trinidadian services. And so when you rang our Miami office, it rang in Trinidad and these guys would talk to them. And what we did is that we hired Venezuelan migrants in Trinidad. And I think people totally underestimate the quality of Venezuelan professionals that sit here in Trinidad that could be hired by your business if you want to go into Latin America. And right now, our biggest focus is building up what we call our LATAM unit. And when I tell you some high quality professionals, because one of the things we realized when we opened in Mexico is that culture has a lot to do with exports. And we didn't necessarily understand the Latin American culture as much as we thought we understood it. But as we got Latin Americans to sit here in Trinidad and understand our Trinidadian culture and learn from them, what we are seeing now is a much more efficient and a much more better run operation with Latin Americans who are Rams employees, who are Trinidadian residents sitting on here and providing services in Mexico and Colombia. And I think it's so important that we don't just look at the things that are not going right for us, which is like the US dollar situation, but the other things that we do have going right for us, like the abundance of talent that sits in this country. It's crazy.
Gabriel, let me just, you talk about Sean being passionate. And I also want to jump on, you see how he's blended people and technology, right? And that blend is what is making it powerful. In fact, now, with Camry and Camille, these days, you don't have to go in that taxi. I mean, that is still sometimes required, but now business meetings are set up virtually. So you have that opportunity to market your businesses and set up these Teams calls with people around the world. I think we all know the challenges with shipping and so on, and the cost of freight these days. Well, the cost of freight to bring things in from China has gone so high that a lot of hemispheric companies are looking to buy from Trinidad and from closer to home, what they call nearshoring. So there's a lot of immediate opportunities out here. And I think the companies that will be very successful is what Sean is saying with Rams, is blending that people and technology to move forward.
Now, I actually think one of our greatest secrets, Navin, and I'm hoping this session will help to unveil that secret, is the amazing work you were doing personally at Exim Bank. Because I did not know, and I know we have spoken so many times, I did not know that you will fund a facility in a foreign country for a local company. I did not know that if somebody was not exporting, and I mean, we have over 100 people on this panel, and I think they need to go out and tell, I'm sorry, I hope I don't give, but you.
Hi, I think Gabriel has a little bit of unstable internet at the moment.
Yeah, I've fallen off.
Yes.
I've fallen off, or am I back on?
You're back on? You're back on now, Gabriel, yes.
Right, yeah. So what's interesting,
Let me jump in for a second, because I know I saw a question. It's the same thing that Gabriel was referring to. There was a question in the Q&A about
what's interesting.
What are the things that Exim Bank has to offer companies, right? And so what I will say is that not only do we do Forex, but we have the lending opportunity. So right now we are funding, I think in the next couple of months, we funded the creation and the build of 2 manufacturing plants for different products and so on for some companies. And so that is one area of things, lending. We have what we call trade finance and so on, which is working capital financing. So raw material financing or trade discounting. If you make a US sale, you don't have to wait for that US to come back. We will give you the money right away, and then we will wait for it to come back. So those are some of the other ways we try to support the business sector.
Right, but the one I wanted to, and I know my internet's giving a little bit of problems, I'm sorry about that, but the one I wanted to go over, because I'm seeing some companies there. So I'm seeing a company, a small company that's in framing, the art framing business here, right? And they are sitting here doing framing as a business, and they're trying to think, how do they evolve? And what's interesting, Navin, is you are saying once that person has the capacity or a plan, and they want to say, I want to export, I want to do framing, I want to be the regional market for framing, you are willing to listen to them and provide some sort of export financing for them to develop their export markets, correct?
That's right. I mean, we're not only doing that, we're willing to work with them on the plan, and that's where also companies that take advantage of the ecosystem. So Export TT, even TTCSI, which I know Mr. Angelillo is here, has a launch of services global program, which is going on right now. But Export TT has a lot of good project grants, a lot of things that are out there. Companies like RAMS, basically what they've set up is that any company has a distribution center in Guyana now. You just go through RAMS and you have your own distribution center.
Well,
so
that's a very
collaborated, by leveraging and collaborating with different groups that are available out here.
That's a key point. I mean, I don't want to make this as a session for us, but I must tell you what RAMS has done in Guyana definitely creates a stepping stone to allow small companies to access that sort of backbone warehouse infrastructure. And I know there are many companies that are in fact talking to RAMS, because a lot of small companies want to export, but they may not have a full-time distributor, but they could send someone, and as an example, Camille could say, I'm going to put standard products into RAMS warehouse, and I will visit the market and get sales and be able to take stock through RAMS warehouse, and they'll deliver it. So it's amazing. What's amazing to me is that in the 80s, Trinidad became a powerhouse because of the challenge that we had. And today, we have the opportunity some of us have the opportunity to complain about where we are, but what you all are doing, and the theme for this session is just get it done. What you all are doing is getting it done. And it is, if this is not something that is going to get people to get off their behinds and think outside the box and take action, it's really amazing.
Gabe, I just want to
Yeah.
I just want to
Go
add
ahead.
something. I feel like a long time ago, a lot of the times when people started a business, they focus 90% on the product that they were going to do or the service, right? And John talks about that distribution channel. I feel nowadays when you start a business, I would spend about 60% of my time trying to understand who my customers are and how do I build a distribution network. And the beauty about doing a business in 2021 is that it doesn't have to be a physical distribution network. It's a digital distribution network that you are doing. But the most important thing is that digital distribution network connects your product or service directly with your customer. So if you think about that framing company here in Trinidad, what is a digital distribution network? A digital distribution network is Instagram, it's Facebook, it's their website, how they promote, they do all of those things. They build out that their customers go online, they place their orders online, they put a certain amount of inventory, let's say in our Guyana 3PL warehouse, they receive orders online on through that digital distribution network that electronically sends a work order to, let's say, our office in our warehouse in Guyana, and we have a courier delivery to the person. You could build a business nowadays and focus your energy and your efforts in
Your
building
brand.
out that distribution networks and your brand, right? And that to me is it. And when I look online and I say to people, listen, I know it's been hard with the US dollar situation, but when I look at the quality of small businesses and the quality of the products that I see online nowadays from Trinidadian companies, it is fine, world-class products. And we have to find a way to figure out how we get those products into the bigger markets, not just CARICOM, because the same 3PL facility that we have in Guyana, it's the same facility that we have in Miami. So you could literally put product into our Miami warehouse and then we digitally distribute it across the US. And I mean, one of the greatest advantages that Trinidadian businesses have is that we live in the same time zone as the most wealthy people in the world, the eastern seaboard of the United States. You come from New York coming down to Miami, you have millions of people who have lots of money to spend and they're buying online all the time. How do we build digital distribution channels and networks to connect Trinidadian products or Caribbean products into those markets? And you could do it today like never before,
Now, John, you know that it's interesting what Sean is saying, because you have taken a product and creamery. I mean, I went into Massey the other day and I looked at the brand, and that brand feels like it's been here for 20. When I say it doesn't feel old, but it's familiar, it's visible, it's available. So you are putting that capacity. Are you mirroring that sort of distribution infrastructure across the region? How are you becoming a home brand across this region? What are you doing?
So, you know, I tell you, God has blessed us with understanding intricately what to do in the distribution of ice cream. This is not frozen distribution alone. We actually hive off ice cream distribution and speak about it as a separate entity, because there's a lot that goes on in ice cream distribution that is a lot more complex than just frozen distribution. And in understanding a lot of what we did with Häagen-Dazs, with Nestle, with Breyers, with all of the more expensive ice creams, we chose to enter the market with creamery as what we call a value brand. We chose to compete in the value brand part of the market because that's where we thought was not being done very well in Trinidad. And we felt it created more opportunity for us to scale, to get economies of scale through that factory, to get technology involved in the factory to produce volumes, to then play out into the export markets. So I'll tell you that with that came a lot of understanding that we are now we are sharing today with our distributors. Thank God we are working with distributors like Massey Distribution in 3 or 4 of the countries, and they are doing an excellent job. And they already have that understanding, and we work very closely with them. And then there are smaller distributors in Dominica and St. Kitts that are doing excellent jobs. Contrary, and I do agree 100% with Sean about the whole digital distribution, but when it comes to ice cream, not being able to travel to the other countries has affected us a little bit, because there's something about getting on the ground with a product like that and working boots on the ground close to the distributor to see and understand and tweak. And we are dying. Our export department is talking about it already. We are ready. We are dying to get back there from January 1 to start traveling again. I myself, I want to hop on a plane. My brothers likewise. And we want to move together through the islands to really see that brand, because we feel that a kinship with that brand. We started it. That's our baby. And we want to see that, grow.
You know, John, it's interesting you said that, because I am one of the old, I'm the old guy in the room here. And I learned to sell first soft drinks. I was at Jalil. And we sell soft drinks by walking the ground, going in there and dealing with it. We sold, and then I was at Angostura, the same thing, and then I was at Carib. So it's the same thing. While digital enables us and it allows us to deepen or to broaden our reach, the fact is that there is hard work. And I think we need to recognize that. And I know Camille raised it. There is an opportunity for us to take that framing business and promote it digitally, collect orders digitally. But the reality is that if you really want to own a market, you can't sit down here and do it. And I think we have to be clear. You can use this to test the market, but the true success, and I'll tell you a story from my expertise. And I went to Jalil in the 90s. That's 30 years ago, by the way, right? It was interesting because they were exporting, but they were exporting product. What Jalil decided to do, and I went in as CEO, was they actually set up businesses, operating businesses, everywhere from Haiti to, and I always remember Sean's comments, high potential, high risk. Right? Haiti was one of our biggest markets, Haiti, Jamaica, Guyana. So we set up businesses in those markets, and we went on the ground and exported. So we went on the ground. So the reality is that we have a number of options today we didn't have in the 90s. The options are that a brand like Wyatt Gallery, who is on looking on right now, could create that brand and could go into the marketplace and start promoting the brand in Guyana and in Jamaica. And she can work with Sean to have the product available. But ideally, she'll have to go into the market and meet with those key players and create some sort of demand outside of just digital. So we have to understand that digital enables us, but true success is going to come from boots on the ground, John, as you said. And Camille, you made that comment also. You have gone into the market and you are going out there beating the ground, because you have to get architects to spec your product, correct? How do you get your product sold?
Correct.
Go ahead.
We have to get a lot of things done like that, but we ended up, because of COVID and the restrictions, we used a lot of social media. Social media was in the palm of everybody's hand, and we developed software and we bought some other ready-made software to add to our system. So you can get a coat with a 3D drawing in under 4 minutes. So while we were shut down, our team was like, what are we going to do? I say, hey, we know how to work, So everybody took a country. Then there were one or two of them said, listen, let's do some more target marketing. And they worked the system and they got this thing tweaked really well, even though people weren't buying. But believe it or not, with the digital age, during the lockdown, people were doing direct transfers for purchases as soon as we reopened. So we were closing sales and they were comfortable with it based on what they saw and whatnot, because everything had demonstrational videos to support all the way from start to finish. And we did the same in the islands, of course. Barbados was one of the biggest breakthrough beside Jamaica, because they have probably every household in Barbados use an architect. And reaching them was really difficult at first, but COVID helped us, as Sean said. For some companies, they struggle, but we were much better during COVID than before.
That's very true. I think Sean said it, and I think I have to say that what COVID has done is that it's what we were hesitant to do, reticent to do. We didn't want to make payments online. I want to go and take my card and pay. No, I ordered some company stamps the other day, and it was amazing. The woman told me, just send me an email. We'll give you the code. When you give you the code, you can go online and make the payment. And they have a locker outside there their stamp company that you don't even have to go in the store and pick up the stamp. You can actually just go to the locker, enter a code, and pick up your stamp. Think of how our world has changed. Now, of course, a different export opportunity. But it just, and of course, Korea, we can move product from Trinidad to any market. So, you know, I think
Gabe, I just wanna add something on that thing with COVID. Like if I look at our customers in Trinidad, I see two groups of customers emerging. I see one group of customers who are the people who are waiting for things to go back to normal, and they are quote unquote surviving on with the hope that they're gonna go back to how things were before. And then the other group is the one who is really evolving, changing, and they realize we're never going back to how it was before, and they make it like Camille talked about with that new tool that he developed online. And what they are seeing is now it's not just about surviving, but it's about thriving. How do I use this opportunity now to grow my business, get bigger, access more markets? And the sad reality is there are going to be quite a few businesses in Trinidad on the first group who are not going to survive for a long time. But the hope is that those companies that are seeing this not as a temporary blip, but the new way of doing businesses, they are the ones who are going to redefine business in the country, and we're going to have a whole new generation of businesses coming out.
Gabriel, if I can jump in, let me just say, one of the things that is so refreshing on this conversation, because everybody here, including the chamber team, has a comparative advantage in execution. These teams, what you hear, you hear John and Camille and Sean and you, Gabriel, your team at the chamber, you guys are able to execute. And that is a skill. I remember when I was back at the school, Lockjack School of Business, we were trying to teach that, but it's very tough to teach that. You really had to learn that and you have to build that. And I wanted to really ask everybody, including you, Gabriel, and all the other panelists, how do you build that culture in your organizations? Because I think that is one thing that is common around this group of people here, is the ability to execute. And how do you get your entire organization to be in that kind of mindset?
Let's ask the panel. I just want to tell you one thing. At Arts Jamaican company, how have you all been able to succeed? You say, boy, pressure. If you take Trinidad, that pressure, we have 30 years of pressure. We had no choice but to think out, exactly what Sean said, think outside the box, because we could sit down here and there are people who will sit down here and complain and say, boy, when things get back, but pressure has forced people. And that's what made Trinidad successful in the 80s. But let's ask each of the people, what drives execution? Did COVID drive execution? Were you executing previously? Did you anticipate and proactively react? Proactively react proactively. Let's start with John. John, what happened? COVID is hurting you, but how did you take advantage? You're muted. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm going to try to cut it short for you, and because we think about this a lot, we talk about it a lot. This is not a founder's conversation. This is a company-wide conversation, and this comes right to the core of the culture of the organization and who you are. When I hear Sean talk and when I hear Camille talk, I have to tell you, my paws raise, because there's something that comes out, and I don't know if you all are hearing it, and it's something that comes out just says, we are doing in spite of. And that summarizes, you can distill that into one word, it's called resilience. Resilience comes from when Sean was growing up. His mother didn't make every excuse for him. But when he did nonsense, he paid the price for it. He learned how to come out of it and bounce back better. And when he was faced with challenges, health challenges, financial challenges, he learned how to come out of that without finding every reason in the world why it was somebody else's fault and not his. Take ownership. Take ownership. This country is who we are. It's a representation. We cry down everything, but it's a representation of who we are as a people. And if you look now, and I'll come right back into our organization, where we came from and who we are, we have no choice. It started off with myself and my two brothers saying, we are Trinbagonians, we only have a Trinbagonian passport, or we belong to this country. So the cynics might say, well, yeah, you're making money or whatever. That is always an aside. At the end of the day, you do what you're supposed to do. God has endowed us with the responsibility to be entrepreneurs, and we should be entrepreneurs. We should push the limits on that and do the best we can, because it's not us alone eating off of it. It's everybody as employees and many stakeholders. You have from banks come right down into small contractors. There's a whole ecosystem around a successful business where everybody is eating our food. So at the end of the day, the spirit is what, the spirit of resilience, the spirit of can-do, the spirit of nationalism, the spirit of just saying, we want to build a domicile business here in Trinidad with an international flavor. So that people can say, who's that company? Guys are Amazon domicile in the US or Ireland or something. Guys Hadco Group domicile in Trinidad.
Excellent, John. Camille, what?
Right. So in doing business, I always envisioned, working with a crowd of people. But how do you get that? So you have to get customers to buy from you. But before you do that, you need your employees. So you need to sell your plan to your staff, because I can't do this thing alone. I have to think about them. I have to think about their families, because if you're in our bio is a family-owned company, but our family is our employees as well, because we spend so much time with them. So we had started to program our businesses like that together, and they helped us selling what we want to put out today. So sustainability and future growth was what we had to start to think of. But to get that going, you have to first throw out the door of procrastination. In Trinidad, I have money. I have Forex. You understand? Everybody's singing the same storm. But what you doing to change it? My business, I was $600 in my jacket pocket. I was on the floor going to companies to find a product. And eventually finding the product of tempered glass came from a religious trip in Saudi Arabia. I met somebody who so many people couldn't talk English. This guy could talk English. I said, right, that's a sign. Spoke, then we came back and we started to do the groundwork, started to put things in place. And from there, a lot changed. The succession planning now started while the plan being made. And that was a difficult thing. You now start and you're done looking at all the other things that you could do. So going out there, getting your hands dirty, getting your team together and moving is the only way you could break this tie that we have in Trinidad where, hey boy, things hard, next year could be rough. We know that. What you putting in place for next year? What you doing for the country? What you doing?
Thanks a lot, Camille. Very good. Sean? You're muted, huh?
Yeah, Gabe, thank you very much. So Gabe, I will go back to the question that Navin asked is how did we do it, right? I'd start off with, I have a deep sense of gratitude. And I told you all that my father started the business in 1985. My father was so poor, right? He was the first one in his family to go to secondary school. People think about, they think about Indian families, they think about land and so on. My father was so poor that he used to cut cane for the people who own the cane. They didn't even own the cane, right? And he would do that every morning before he go to school. And he put that into us. So, and he always said that he was so poor, he didn't think one day he would even own a bicycle, right? That's how bad it was. And I grew up understanding that I am so lucky to be in this country and to live the quality of life, because he mortgaged his house and he did everything to get to start the business. By the time I came into the business, it was 20 people, but I didn't have to think that at the end of the month, I would lose my business in order to pay payroll or lose my house if I had to make payroll. So I came into the business at a time when I knew I could have lived and I could have breathed and I could focus on growing out rather than just trying to survive. And I want to tell everybody that even during the most difficult times, there are things that we could focus on to build. And sometimes, there's a old saying that says, if you keep your face in the sunshine, you don't see the shadows, right? And I'm not saying that we can't see the problems, but even amongst all the problems, as John said, there's opportunity, right? There is opportunity. And I tell everybody, and the chamber has my email address. I speak to a lot of people, right? I'm happy to, because I'm so grateful for the opportunity that this country has given me. think about it, in 4 generations, I am here sitting talking to you all today. My great-grandfather could have barely speak any English. In fact, he didn't even speak English. They came from the poorest of the poor, and this is where we are today. So we have a great story in this country, right? We have a great story in this country. And, you know, they always say that during businesses fail because during good times, they don't realize that bad times are going to come. And during bad times, they don't realize that good times are going to come. Keep your head up. Yes, this is not the easiest of times, but the good times are going to come, and be prepared for it. Be prepared for it, and make sure you continue to invest in your business and reach out to people. I'm happy to talk to anybody. My email address is sean.rampersad@ramslogistics.com. If you really feel like you're under pressure, you want to get something done, reach out. I'm happy to spend a few minutes with you, because I'll tell you, a lot of people helped me. I am very, very lucky to be where I am today. And it wasn't because of me alone. It was because of a ton of people that helped me to get here. So the least I could do is help anybody else as well.
Thank you very much, John. You know, mentorship is one of the things that the chamber has been talking about. And John remembers me inviting to a session, John, 2020 March, when we were talking about mentorship. So that's something we have to talk about. I want the group to know, because I'm seeing some comments coming up, the mechanics of export. And I want this group to understand the mechanics of export actually is the easy part. And I don't want to downplay its importance. It's important. It is getting the right export pricing. And we have a webinar. That talks about market-backed pricing and trade marketing and so on. So those mechanics are crucial, guys. But you know what I think this webinar is telling us is that you can have the mechanics right, but if you don't have the fire in your belly, and if you don't have the passion, you will fail, because the mechanics are not going to generate success, right? So what Exim Bank is there to do, Exim Bank is there to provide. I mean, I will tell you that if 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in 1980, I had an Exim Bank that they have today. I worked for a small company called Meckelfab, and they were making cold storage panels, and they were selling them. Because foreign exchange was so bad, they started selling cold storage panels from Trinidad to Costa Rica. I must tell you, that was polystyrene in a container. Think about how uncompetitive that would be in freight. But they had no choice. So the mechanics, the chamber has a webinar series that we have done. You can look at the mechanics. What you're learning here today is the mechanic is a hygiene item. You have to have the mechanic. You have to have the right price. You have to have the right product. You have to have the right distribution market, route to market. You have to have the right distribution infrastructure. But if you don't have these mechanics, if you don't have a vision, a passion, and if you don't have a support infrastructure like Exim Bank that's going to support your vision. And I want to commend the government. I don't normally commend the Minister of Finance, as you all know, but I want to commend the Minister of Finance and the government for the work, for what Exim Bank is doing in terms of providing support to export companies. Because to think that we can have an idea and a plan and sit down and go to Exim Bank and discuss that, I think is awesome for me. It's awesome for me because there are young people that can take advantage of that. What I'd like to do is go to the questions. We have a number of questions.
Very quickly, right? And I just want to say one of the things that we are blessed with here at Exim Bank is the team. You know, Sean and John talked about, and we talk about the people. But this team at the Exim Bank, they have been willing to go, you know, anytime, weekends, evenings, and so on. And the reason for that is we all have that common purpose. We know what the purpose is, and for any organization, and it's not just us, we have partners. I see some people from EY here, Adrian, you know, help us with the export plan, you know, but the purpose is to drive national forex earnings, which we know, in my view, is the economic vaccine for the country. And I think that is what fuels all our team here to try to be there for our clients and to continue to do what we do.
So thank you very much. You know, I want to specifically recognize the Minister of Trade and Industry, Paulo Gobisco, who has been always available. And I know in early meetings, and I know, Navin, when you looked at the foreign exchange allocated, when we had a meeting with the Minister of Trade and we identified the need for us to ensure we had basic foods and farmer. They put that facility in place. And people will say, but how did that happen? And that's why in Trinidad, we did not run out of basic foods. If you all notice, you will see people lining up in Canada and the US, not able to get toilet paper on certain things. But in Trinidad, we actually kept that because the government took a proactive approach. So I just want to recognize the work that was done by the Minister of Trade, the Minister of Health, and Minister of Finance on coordinating that through Exim Bank. Let's go to the question.
You didn't mention one part, that you get on calls with me and made all the conference calls and set up the whole thing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's our role. Our role is always to advocate, and I use the term fearlessly, but also to recognize everyone. So let me just go on now to the questions. Quickly, the windows, Camille, they asked if no one will be able to open them outside. I'm assuming that's a given, right? You could see the questions there. You could open your questions and you could go through. Are there safety features so no one will be able to open? Are you seeing the questions, Camille? You all could open the questions.
No, I'm not seeing the questions.
Okay, so I can answer for your behalf. I know they can't be open from outside. So let me go to the next one, Mr. Haddad. Right? Explain whether you collect waste from other companies. So how do you and as well as to export, or how does he generate enough to achieve economies of scale? John, are you seeing the question?
Yes, I saw it. I can answer that very quickly. Our recycling division consists right now of 3 different companies, and one collects waste cooking oil, cleans it up, and exports it to Spain for use in biofuel. So that's US dollars from garbage. All of them are US dollars from garbage. We collect batteries and we export that to South Korea for them to smelt and pull out the lead, their lead acid batteries that we collect, as well as paper, cardboard, aluminum cans, Tetra Packs, and the list goes on. We have a few plans of getting plastics off the streets, of taking tires and shredding and exporting. All of that is not generated by Hadco Group alone. All of that is what we are trying to do. And again, one day somebody might look at us and say, well, the job was mediocre, we failed. We are trying to set up a recycling ecosystem before the government sets the framework for it, because there are no framework. The thing about it is, if you look at it, you can look at it and say, like a lot of people do, we do have the framework, so how are we going to recycle? Well, then what about the opportunity side of that? Because that's the corollary. Let's look at the opportunity side. And the opportunity side is, if we go and do it before the government sets the framework, who owns it then?
Yeah,
we own it. We own the whole ecosystem. So we are collecting garbage from everybody right now. And our intention is to scale that up. And it's pure US dollars, Navin, from no raw material usage.
It's a zero-based industry. You're collecting all garbage on the way foreign exchange.
Yes.
And that there is innovation, guys. That there is innovation. Navin, a question for you. What other financial instruments do Exim utilize in leveraging the local business sector other than the use of Forex? I'm not too sure how to answer that. Do you have a...
When you were getting connectivity issues, I spoke about it, the trade finance, the lending products for and those type of things. So I talked.
Okay. So we have another question here, and it talks about establishing distribution network in export markets. And I know, and John is probably the most relevant from a consumer perspective here. And I think, John, a lot of this is really the selection of your partner in the relative market, right? Making sure they're aligned with they have the capacity and infrastructure, correct? What would you like to sort of probably raise that question?
The question specifically is what the partner.
How do you approach establishing a distribution network in export markets?
Well, that just depends on the product in which you're trying to sell. So, for instance, when it comes to garbage, you generally find that you have to go through these middle people that sort of collect garbage or connect garbage from all over the world to the destined market. So you generally are not talking to the importer of the market. You don't even know sometimes who they may be, right? Because they are these middle aggregators that you work through. In the case of ice cream, you have to choose somebody in the country that has the intricate knowledge of ice cream distribution, or that you're prepared to help them build that out. And in some cases, we've done that. We've worked with people, shown them what to do in terms of their cold storage, work with them to help them distribute that out. And so it just depends. For instance, I could share with you, Sean made a point about digital distribution. When we're doing the PAN project, and we're working on that PAN project, almost like it's a collaboration, a high collaboration between a number of different people here, including the tuners and so locally. Our distribution network that we are building, and ask me a year from now if it's going to be successful, is a digital distribution network. We're building a heavy digital. You're supposed to order, buy, spec, and we ship, all done digitally. And that's what our dream is there, so that we have no footprint all over the place. But if you think about it, that pan goes from factory straight to user. And that's what we're trying to do. And then there are a lot of ecosystems being built around that by Mark Loquan and they with Panotation that we're going to piggyback on the back of. And it's a whole, again, that's an exciting ecosystem that's being built out on the cultural side here in Trinidad.
Correct. So just to put that in perspective for this, is that every type of business will have a different route to market. And the route to market for consumer goods will be completely different. In the example, for the case in the route to market for Camille's product. And in the case of Sean's product, your customer, how do you get to when you open in Colombia, how do you find a customer, Sean? I mean, who is your customer?
Yeah, so the first thing is to always understand what you're always good at, right? So if you in the Colombia side, we focus, for example, on the energy customers. So in Trinidad, we already work for the Schlumbergers, the Halliburtons, everybody else. They already have offices there. We are moving product for them, let's say from the US to Trinidad, and we do it very, very well. We do it better than most other people. So then you go to them and say, hey guys, you all have a big operation in Colombia. Why don't you give us a chance to move from the US to Colombia for you? And if you do it very, very well and you give them a good level of service, more than likely they will give you an opportunity. In the oil sector, the barrier to entry is quite high. So we don't have a huge amount of competition, right? There are a few people in our service, in our industry, who provide those services to those companies. And what you do then, that becomes your base. You start building out from there. You start understanding the market better and better, and then you start going out. But I want to say one thing, Gabe. I think a lot of people, when they get into the export market, the one thing I show everybody off is that you're going to make mistakes. Not everything is going to go the way you expect it to go. But I see a lot of people giving up because they run into some issues. I can't tell you how much nights, I sit down and I stumped and I talking to my team and we're trying to figure out how to solve a problem. And there's an interesting study that came out of Harvard a few years ago. There were two teams of people, and they put both of them, they wanted them to build a bowl. And on one team, they said, just build as many bowls as you can. And the other team, they said to them, sit down and really think about what the best bowl in the world should look like, and the best manufacturing process and everything else. And after 6 months, team number one had built about 4,000 bowls, and team number two had built one bowl. But what they realized is that team number one had built a way higher quality bowl than team number two, who had built one bowl, who they gave all the time and everything. You learn by doing. You learn by making mistakes. You get fire in your belly and strength and every time, because you keep doing and you keep doing and you keep improving and you keep improving. Sometimes we can't just sit down and think about what's the best way to do things. You just have to go and do the damn thing, right? And you get better at it by doing it. You're going to make mistakes. Things are going to be hard. That is part of the process. It's part of the learning process. And if I see a good opportunity, I guarantee you that John did know nothing about garbage some time ago. But when he say, hey, it looked like something, we're going to figure it out. We'll learn about it. We'll make a few mistakes and we'll build out a business. That's what you got to do a lot of the times, right?
No, but Sean, I want you to know something. I know John's business a little bit. Garbage is actually an output of his input. And I mean, I would say that the reason I'm saying that is he supplies the restaurant sector, and they had oils. So he actually used the same link you had. Where, John, I'm sorry if I take it, you're muted. Right? Isn't that so?
But I wanna put a plug in here, right? We all, as Sean said, do and make mistakes, but also keep an open mind, because there are people around you doing real good work. When we bought into the Eco Impact oil facility, we bought that from Troy Hadid, who had already done all the hard work. And if you ask me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we thought Troy was mad going in to collect us at a little bit of cooking oil from people. We were selling the cooking oil. So we selling the cooking oil and then he collecting all the garbage on the outside to clean it up. And that taught us, stop looking at things and thinking, you know, there's an opportunity. So you look at the people, who keep your mind open, watch the landscape. There's good stuff going on around. Be open for business. And I want to put a plug in here for Navin. Exim is relevant because they are open for business. If you're calling him with a crazy idea, he's going to listen to you. They listen to people. And they have people inside the Exim Bank. Let me ask you, when is the last time you get email at 11 and 11:30 at night? There are people inside the Exim sending emails at 11 and 11:30 at night. Who the heck does that? You know? But
Especially in public sector.
Right.
But I wanted to put one theory point. Tax, John, I appreciate that. But one theory point here, which is we always, in some certain things, you always hear about the circular economy, where the outputs become the inputs. And what you see, this is not theory, this is actually being done with John and the other members. That is the circular economy actually happening. So it's not a theory call about circular, it happened.
A big question has come up. Somebody has raised a question here, and I actually sat on a panel last week on it. Environmentally sustainable, you know, and John, I think you actually are doing that because you are taking garbage and recycling, but we all talk about climate change and about the impact on our business. Anybody want to put anybody want to lead on that? What measures are you taking to make your business processes environmentally sustainable? I don't know, John or Camille, if that's something you all would like to.
I could jump in first.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Let me just say something on that note. Look at what has happened. Some of the initiatives around the world. Look at BlackRock and their CEO and a declaration that he's made in terms of financing businesses now. That people are looking to finance businesses that are measuring their carbon footprint. People are looking to finance businesses now that are going carbon net zero. And the fact is that if we think that we are insulated from that here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are not. So I'm excited at looking at what Camille is doing, because solar panels, from what I know on the engineering side, it's not an easy thing at what he's going to do there. And I'm looking at that with keen interest because I think his contribution in that area is going to be massive. But for all of us, whether you believe it or want to accept it or not, we are going to be auditing our carbon footprint before we even audit our financials. And if you follow the space in the world, you'll set that up in your business one time. Because if anybody asks me to start looking at our carbon footprint and our carbon rebates and so, obviously recycling is going to be a big part. So if you think about what we are doing also, we are looking down the road 5 and 10 years from now and understanding that we have to start looking at what are positive carbons and what is negative within our group. And we are starting to try to measure that right now. And I think whether you like it or not, your contribution to the environmental footprint and conservation and all that is a must. You're going to have to be measured by it. So you better get on board.
Key point. Camille?
I agree. So getting on board with tempered glass, the first step with tempered glass for us, our factory is to throw away 2 tons of garbage a week in terms of glass that can't be reused. So a lot of energy to produce this glass, but with tempered glass, you have so many other uses of smaller panels, smaller pieces, shelving, etc. Also, the glass, with impact glass, it is also helping because of the PVB layer and EVA layer, it helping cut down temperatures. That goes into electricity, which is carbon footprint. Our UPVC is a lot of recycled material. Our waste from UPVC is 1/3 of what it is with the aluminum factory. And now leading up to what everybody likes is the solar panel. It's free energy. It's the manner in which we're gonna assemble this whole thing from tempered glass to impact glass, because all the equipment are now going to be put together to make solar panels and bring energy efficiency or sustainability in a home, in a business, literally for free. Of course, you have your initial capital cost of the product. No drilling for oil, no drilling for this, after this panel has been purchased to create that energy. It will even work as well in modern places, you see they're doing agro and solar together. So John, maybe we will communicate soon in some of your visions as well and try and, do something there.
Right. I want to move on there because we're coming down to time, and I want to get to some questions. So there are two technical questions. And John, I know we're in a very positive mode here, but there are two questions here I want in fact, the retired executive director from the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce is on. We have people from CARICHAM because we are part of the regional chambers network. Do you face challenges regarding rules of origin qualifying for your products to access markets? So I want to put that in two questions. One, of course, the rules of origin. Two, NTBs, non-tariff barriers. How are those affecting you all? And I don't know if it's applicable to Sean, but in the case of John, I know you have had some challenges in some of the regional markets. So, and John and Camille, and then if anything, Sean could jump in after. John, you want to take the lead on that one? I know you have a sore point you may want to raise.
Yeah. I'm willing to talk about it. Our ice cream to the Jamaican market. If you look at the Jamaican market right now, they have a local manufacturer, an excellent local manufacturer, that's Devon House. They make the creamy brand and Devon House, which is the upper end brand. And then you have your boutique manufacturers, and then you have your imports. They import Häagen-Dazs, they import Helados Bond from the Dominican Republic, which qualifies under the CARIFORUM arrangement for duty-free entry into Jamaica. I happen to know the volumes there, significant volumes into Jamaica by Helados Bond. And it seems like the Jamaican market has welcomed all of those imports. Nestle, the whole Unilever range, all of that goes into Jamaica. Yet still, we can't get into the Jamaican market after entering 8 or 9 other Caribbean countries. And I like to talk openly. Hadco Group is one of the largest private importers of Jamaican products into Trinidad. We are recognized by the High Commission locally here. We work with Grace Kennedy. We work with Rainforest Foods. These are iconic brands across there. Yet still, and I'll say this to you, not finding an excuse, we think that we are being treated with non-tariff barriers into the Jamaican market. We think it's dominated by some level of influence to keep us out. The excuse is COVID. I will talk about it openly now, because at the end of the day, it's all excuses. If they want to do a virtual tour, we just got HACCP certified by a virtual tour. Why can't we be virtual tour? And we know that the Jamaicans have done some virtual tours of another company here in Trinidad to allow them in. So it's clear that you have a situation like that. Our people have sat down and come up with all sorts of schemes and ideas of how we could crack that. What I can tell you, great example. I love the point that Sean made, by the way. Just do it. Just get in and learn and do it. And the fact is, we are trying not to approach the Jamaican market in a negative light. We are saying, let's continue to plod through it. Let's work through. We've used our ministry to lobby their ministry, and we understand that there are challenges there. Patience is a virtue. It's like the vaccination thing. We've chosen to approach it in a patient manner. Educate, talk, learn, pivot, go again, rather than this forceful, argumentative way. And to answer you, Gabriel, we have had similar challenges in other areas. The Jamaican market and the ice cream is probably the biggest of them all. And you know, we don't have an answer. You have to ask me this a year from now. Have we been successful in Jamaica? And I would hope to say that after we start back traveling next year, we get across there, we try to learn maybe what do they want of us? What can we do to get into that market? Just like Helados Bond has been facilitated into that market from the Dominican Republic.
And yeah, that okay, John. I know that's a sore point, and I mean, you may or may not remember, you actually visited Jamaica. Your company visited Jamaica on our first trade mission, on a trade mission we held there, and there was very good interest from some importers. Very good interest. So it's a shame, because I think that must have been more than 2 years ago. Camille, any challenges from your end?
Hey, Gabriel, I just want to add one thing before you go to Camille. I think the non-tariff barriers and the challenges are very real in CARICOM, but it's not just real in terms of getting Trinidadian products out. It's also about getting CARICOM products into Trinidad as well. And you would realize that there are a lot of exporters in every country who have problems with the way their goods are treated in other CARICOM countries. Today, as a service company, we are having significant barriers in Guyana, for example, to operate as a Trinidadian company there as well. And I think more than anything else, what we need and I'm happy that, Gabe, that you said that there are members at CARICHAM online, right? What we really need is not just to leave this thing as a government issue. We as the private sector need to find a way to lead the discussion and influence not government policy in each country, but how do we influence regional policy through the organs of CARICOM, right? Because everybody has, and what we need to do is we need to set the rules at the CARICOM level and make sure that everybody's aware of the rules and let the enforcement not come by individual members of CARICOM, but by CARICOM, the organization itself. And if we have to, I mean, how in God's name can 52 states operate in the United States and us, a few little countries in the Caribbean Sea, can't operate? We each have to operate like we are the king of our own little pond. You know, I mean, we need CARICHAM. We as the private sector need to work together to drive that. And I think that's the way to go forward in that.
Sean, I'm glad you raised that. I don't want to derail this too much, but I want to tell you there's actually, besides CARICHAM, and CARICHAM is a key component of business of business chambers. There's actually another association called the CARICOM Private Sector Organization, which is made up of a group of businesses, and they're now broadening their membership. And they actually have a head at the seat at the heads of government. They actually have a seat at the heads of government. And it's a true private sector representation. And the reality is that we have something called the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. And we really have to stop telling people you can't go and work there and you can't go and work there. You can't have a country with 1 million or 250,000 or 30,000 and say we independent. I mean, yeah, you're independent, but I mean, you're not even a little village in somewhere. So we need this 16 million or 40 million, whatever you want to take, if you include CARIFORUM or if you include Haiti or DR. We need that market if we want to be a global player, because we can't become a global player servicing 40,000 or 100,000 people. We have to get economies of scale. So I don't want to divert the discussion, but I can tell you this is an important discussion. I'm glad it came up, and we're going to need to address it. Anything else, Carrie? So we talked CSME, CPA, and EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement. Is that in anybody's horizon with the EU and with the UK? Anything happening there?
Yeah, I mean, I sat on a panel with the Ministry of Trade and Export TT. I think Exim Bank was on that panel as well. And there are people who are accessing those markets, right? I mean, John probably has a big opportunity there with some of that tuna to go into the UK as well, not only into the US. So Export TT has a lot of very, very good resources, as well as the trade facilitation unit at the Ministry of Trade that could get you really, really good help and really good information to access those markets. And I would say Costa Rica, DR, Panama now, those are some really, really good markets that we should be focusing on. I'm sure Camille could sell a lot of glass in Costa Rica.
So just to be clear on that point, first thing, the European Union also has a trade attaché that also is very supportive of the whole EPA arrangement, and the UK has just facilitated, they have broken that out. I will tell you that there are challenges in the Latin markets. One of the biggest challenges, especially for some companies, is that every single flavor, so for example, for John, every flavor of ice cream would need to be individually registered. So you have some little dynamics, but again, taking this point, we will find a way out. Let me just move on quickly because we're getting on with time. Any gaps, please identify any continuing gaps in local ecosystem that create challenges for the next wave of export growth. You, well, I'm using the word you, me. In other words, based on what you guys are saying, yes, there are challenges, but we can overcome them. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Panel?
Well, let's just say that challenges, another way of saying challenges is opportunity, right? Because if you don't have something to overcome, there's an opportunity to overcome that. So that's what this team, this group here is. They face the challenges and overcome.
Right, no problem. So yes, there are challenges.
But in all fairness, Navin, there are real challenges. There are real challenges to surmount to get into export business. And for some people, those challenges could be very difficult if you don't have the participation of the government and the statutory bodies. And I'll tell you that this is where we found InvestTT is really very much open for business also. These people listen. You could go to them and you could say to them, partner, if we don't work to get my town and country and EMA approvals. Navin, you know about a project that we're looking at right now. And this is going to be very difficult for the EMA because this particular project, we're going to have to collaboratively work with and they've said so already, they said, hey, partner, we can't approve this. You all have to work with us. How are you going to self-monitor? How are we going to work together to make sure you don't dirty this country up with that project? And a good example that you could want to surmount whatever you want to, but the will has to be behind that sometimes for the project to get going. And it could have big export potential, Gabriel. And I'll point to InvestTT because I do think these people want to help. I do think these people want to sit down, look, maybe lobby at the government level, maybe look at some of these statutory bodies and see how things could be tweaked to help the project. If it's worthwhile, maybe it's not.
Fair enough. I point taken, and I think while we have let's get it done, the reality is there are challenges, and I want to let the people know that the TNT Chamber is here to provide the support. We're here. You call us. We will make the connections. Exim Bank is an amazing weapon. Navin, I'm seeing a note here. Does it have a total addressable market cap for Exim Bank to invest? Or you don't invest in a local company, you provide financing, correct? You're seeing the question?
For now, it's financing, loans and so on. But there was a statement in the budget when the minister made where we are setting up a catalytic fund. And if you look at what catalytic finance is, that includes everything from financing some of those sustainable type of arrangements that you were talking about earlier. It will also allow us to do, collateral support and possibly, I mean, we're not sure yet about that if we want to do investments, but that is something on the horizon. And one big thing out of that, Gabriel, is we'll be able to do what you've been telling me we need to do for a long time, is provide support to the services sector. Service sector,
yes. Because that's where we take our intellectual capital and really take it out there. But Navin, is there a company you wouldn't lend a business to, a certain minimum size? Is there a minimum size? You must have a balance sheet, I'm assuming. I mean.
So right now, just so everybody recall, I don't want to mislead, right now, our lending, we can deal with the smallest of companies, but we have the same requirements like any other bank in terms of collateral. So we want land and property or tangible security. So that is the only thing. But again, with this catalytic fund, we will get probably a way to deal with that.
Okay, there's another question, and it says, how will the post-pandemic economy look like? And I cannot tell everybody there's no post-pandemic. We're going to be living with an endemic. I don't know. Is it going to change? We are changing. We are changing. So I don't know if I want to sort of pursue that question too much. Interesting question. I think we've kind of covered it. What was your greatest challenge?
But you should pursue that a little bit, because there are some changes, and those changes are making countries like ours show a lot of opportunity, Gabriel. Because have you thought about ecological projects and ecotourism? People actually, Trinidad and Tobago is on the map. Thanks to Nicki Minaj and her exploitations, we are on the map. Everybody out there knows Trinidad and Tobago. So if you think about hospitality and you think about everything we have to offer post-pandemic, we are relevant. So opportunities there in culture, a lot of opportunities. And people's interests have changed during COVID, I think, or maybe not changed, but magnified in terms of hikes, outdoor activities, everything that we have to offer here, all the sort of experiential type travel. Good opportunities for us.
Well, I think the way I was raising it, and I think your point, John, is that post-pandemic economy, we are going to be living in an environment where the consumer has changed for sure. The consumer has changed. I mean, as I said, I'm the old dog in the room, but I am nervous about big crowds. So the whole environment of maybe I want to just be with a couple of friends when I go out in a more controlled environment, the way we consume, the way we go out, the way many courts has told me the consumer buying patterns have changed. So people are thinking more of health. They're thinking more of home, because home has become, for me, home has become my office. So I want my home to be comfortable. So the environment is changing. The real estate environment is changing. So I don't think anyone here can really say what the world's going to look like, but we know the world is going to be different. The world is going to be different. And as everyone has said here, we just have to take that opportunity. There's an interesting question next. Greatest challenge. I'm going to ask everyone, what was the greatest challenge each of you all had? And maybe you could comment on that. What was the best break you got? The luckiest break you got? So, Camille, in my mind, your luckiest break is when you went to Hajj and you met this guy who could speak English and was a supplier. I mean, I'm just using that as an example.
That's right. Because we were trying to figure out, there are so many companies, there were all sends everybody into the window business. Camry was nothing, nowhere. So we had to come up with some way to be ahead of them in terms of a product that they don't make.
Right.
And in so being, tempered glass was and is the beginning stages for so many other products. And now that we can make it, they were not able to. We had the upper hand, and we even supplied them and still supplying some of them because you have no longer need for imports.
So that was your lucky break. What was your greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge was, for me, financing technology. That technology was scary, but in terms of quality of output, the technology took part in that, took care of that. So we had to just invest ahead with the latest, and every year we have them. Unfortunately, this year we couldn't. The engineers come and inspect and make sure all is well with our factory equipment.
Okay, all right, good. John, what's a big opportunity for you? Or greatest challenge? Any order you wanted.
Yeah, I'll start off with the opportunities. A lot of our opportunities came within a group by just us being open to ideas. You know, sit down in a conversation with people, don't shut people down. Listen, because you wouldn't be surprised to know what you learn from the most obscure directions. And a lot of the things that have happened to us, I always tell people, we are also open for business. So come, present your ideas, talk about it, tell me what you want to do next. That's how we got involved with ice cream. Excellent idea that we took and we worked together and mushroom with that. So that being said, the challenges all came from the very beginning of this business to do with finance. We started this business, myself and my two brothers, with no money. And we started this business 29 years ago with very little capital. I think over the years, we had an abundance of ideas with very little capital to match those ideas. So thank God, we've been able to show to the financial institutions that, you know, we keep our integrity loop going. And I think that's a lot of people miss. Do that, and you can get the financial support from the bank.
Sean?
Yeah, I think, Gabe, so our biggest challenge has always been to build out the infrastructure to keep pace with the scale. You know, at some points, you keep going, but you're realizing you're having more bad days than good days because your infrastructure is not supporting the growth of your business, right? And, you know, one of the good things that we never say, hey, slow down, stop. You always say, hey, find a way to make it happen. And on the opportunity, Gabe, I have to be real honest with you when I say, you know, so this business, my brother and I run this business and our whole leadership team, you know, I'm the oldest person on the leadership team. But we've been really lucky to have my dad in the business. My dad started the business. And I have a lot of friends who work for the parents. And sometimes, you know, when you go from one generation to the next, they say, yeah, come in the business, take it over. But they're also waiting for, they want you to run the business exactly how they ran it. They're waiting for you to make the mistakes. And my father has always been kind enough and good enough to give us his expertise, but to let us make our own mistakes and not be there to say, I told you so. So I've been really, really grateful and lucky to have a good coach and mentor in him and our entire leadership team. You know, we've had that. And he built his business on integrity and really making sure that he delivered us. He used to be the chief cook, captain, bottle washer, however you call it, you know, and you know, that was him, and he was responsible. And I learned that it doesn't matter how big the business get, I am responsible. At the end of the day, it's my job to solve problems for my customers, and that's what we need to do. And I think that's how we built our business.
Right. Okay, great. Let's go through.
Let me just,
you want to tell me your success?
believe it or not, the Exim Bank, one of the greatest challenges when I joined a few years ago was also
Perception of the Exim Bank, a perception of the Exim Bank.
finance, because over the years, the bank supported businesses, high-risk businesses, and then we had a whole bunch of big losses to take. But we went through it, we come through that. Luckiest break, this Exim Bank team. I didn't know what I was going to find, and when I found this group of people, I am so happy to be part of this team, a very high-performing team. So that's my answer there.
Key message, people. Key message, people. You can't do it alone. Guys, I want to wrap up. We're running all over time. A hell of a question there, Navin. It looks a little bit like for you. A key point for the panel.
I read it already, and I can shortly say that maybe this one could be handled offline, and the person who sent it, Anton, could contact the Exim Bank. We should be able to help once he's in manufacturing or some way, but that is exactly what we do. His question there in terms of provided forex.
Okay, so he will be in touch with you directly. Exports to Africa from the Caribbean will benefit the economy. Yes, I think any market. Is anybody looking at that as a market? I can tell you, when I was at Jaleel had set a plant up in somewhere in South Africa, and actually after I left, but